Hello, and welcome to Candidates Up Front. This is a public interest election program of Berks Community Television and the League of Women Voters of Berks County. Our May 16th primary election is coming up. Democrats and Republicans will vote for judges, school directors, and county, township, borough, and city officials. The deadline to register to vote is May 1st. To check your voting status, go to votepa.gov. That's vote.pa.gov. You can register, change your party, locate your polling place, or apply for an absentee or mail-in ballot. The deadline to register is May 1st. The deadline to apply for a mail-in ballot is May 9th. The League is interviewing those candidates who wanted to be interviewed in contested races. For each race, the candidates will get the same basic questions and the same amount of time to answer them. Hello, I'm Judith Cranus, a member of the League of Women Voters of Berks County. 3 candidates are competing for a chance to be judge of the Court of Common Pleas. They are all cross-filed, which means they are all on the ballot for both Democrat and Republican Party. They are Justin Bodor, Jill Scheidt, and Kurt Geishauser. Now, voters across the country will vote for 2 to be on the fall ballot because there are 2 open positions. The Court of Common Pleas hears trials of major criminal and civil matters. It hears matters involving children and families. And it hears appeals from the minor courts. The term is 10 years, and the 2023 salary is $212,495. Now, please remember that the opinions expressed are those of the candidate and not necessarily those of BCTV or the League of Women Voters. And today we welcome Kurt Geishauser. So Kurt, welcome.
Thank you.
And please tell our viewers about yourself and why you're running.
Well, my name again is Kurt Geishauser. I'm 53 years old. I live in Exeter Township here in Berks County, where I've been for 22 years. I'm running for judge because I want to make a change in people's lives and for the better. I think as a practitioner for 27 years, I've been advocating for people's rights, and I think I can do a better job serving the community as a judge for the Court of Common Pleas and essentially a referee for the 2 parties that would come to court and be litigating their different controversies.
Could you tell us about your education and your background for this position?
Well, I got a Juris Doctorate, or I'm sorry, I should start with, I went to college and studied accounting, where I got a Bachelor of Science. Then I went on to Dickinson School of Law, where I received a Juris Doctorate, and I eventually went on to Villanova School of Law to study taxation for 2 years. And then I've went on to intern for a bankruptcy judge here in Reading, and Judge Thomas Twardowski, and then I went on to clerk for Judge Stephen B. Lieberman for a number of years before I went into private practice.
And are you involved, first let me ask, what personal qualities do you have that would help you be an effective judge?
Well, I think I'm good at reading people. I think in terms of personal qualities, one thing I think people would say is about me is I'm inherently honest. My father-in-law's mantra was always, "Your word is your bond," and I believe that is true. And I think that again, with having a feel for people and recognizing the different situations that people find themselves in, and I believe I would be fair and impartial in meting out justice in that regard.
And are you involved in volunteer or community work? And if so, please tell us about what you do.
I've been involved in volunteer community work in a sense in that I've been on the Berks County Food Bank Board of Directors. I served on the Star Series Board of Directors, which is dated at this point, but that was a group that brought cultural productions to the community. And as far as community work, I do a lot of pro bono work in my practice. Some of it is actually mandated by the Bar Association. You're required to perform pro bono work as a part of being a member there. But other than that, I find myself taking care of people that I believe are in need of legal counsel, and I'm happy to provide that when it's necessary.
Now, let's say you're calling citizens for jury duty. How would you explain to them the duties that they have and the importance of them serving?
Well, I would explain to them that it is fundamental to our system of justice, and that the system would fail if it wasn't for them, and it's indispensable. I believe our system of justice is the best in the world. Certainly not perfect, but the best in the world. I think that as a juror, your duties are very serious in that you are tasked with listening to the evidence, processing the evidence, and being fair and impartial with your decision, as would a judge sitting as a fact finder, in making very important decisions for people's lives.
Now, if you're elected, is there an area of the courts that you would prefer to serve? Criminal, civil, family, or a special court? And tell us why that would be your main interest.
Well, I've practiced extensively in the criminal system. I certainly have experience in civil, family, or orphans court, or any other division that the Common Pleas Court encompasses. I have some experience with special courts like treatment courts, including drug treatment court or mental health treatment court or veterans court, for that matter. I think if it came down to it, I would prefer to sit in criminal court, again, that being the area that I'm most familiar with. And I think I would be a very efficient and fair judge in that division.
Mm-hmm. Pennsylvania is one of 2 states that currently does not provide any state funding to the Public Defender's Office. And public defenders here in Berks are funded by, well, everywhere they're funded by county taxes, resulting in disparity from one judicial district to another. How do you feel about this funding issue?
I don't believe the disparity is necessarily from one judicial district to the other. I think the disparity is between the prosecutor's office and the public defender's office. And as you know, the prosecutor's office is funded by the state. And I think if there was some way to rectify that disparity, it would be by the state funding the public defender's office in each judicial district. I don't necessarily see that happening, but I think that would be one way to equalize the funding issue.
Would you give us your views on plea bargaining?
I think plea bargaining really has a bad connotation to it. I think the general public believes that somehow the defendant in a criminal case is getting a good break by plea bargaining out their case to some finite resolution. However, I would say that anyone that knows the system knows that plea bargaining is necessary. I don't have the statistics in front of me, but the large majority of criminal cases in Berks County and I think throughout the country are resolved with some type of plea bargain, some plea negotiation. To a certain extent, it's, I think, what is right in most situations, because with experienced prosecutors, experienced defense attorneys, people know where things stand and can weigh their case and resolve it without the necessity of pulling people in off the street to serve as jurors to litigate a case when everyone really knows what the facts are and it's really just coming to an appropriate resolution.
If you were sentencing someone who'd already been convicted of the crime, what factors should be considered? What factors would you consider? How do you weigh and balance?
Well, to a certain extent, those factors are enumerated in the sentencing code, and they're pretty much commonsensical in that you consider the nature of the case, the surrounding circumstances of the case, the mitigating or aggravating factors of the specific case, and the character or of the defendant and how he came to be in this particular situation that he was convicted of.
When do you feel that an alternative to jail would be appropriate?
Certainly there are low-risk offenders that deserve a second chance and don't necessarily need to be incarcerated when the society at large is not at risk. I think that jail is a last resort in most cases. I think it's necessary in some cases, but for the most part, where there's a nonviolent offense, where there were surrounding circumstances which mitigated the extent of the situation, I think that a more rehabilitative setting in most instances would be appropriate.
And what kinds of alternatives to jail would you find appropriate?
Well, Berks County is very fortunate in that, as I alluded to earlier, there are a number of treatment courts, or special courts as they're referred to, already in place, and they are very effective. However, that being said, I would say that they're very intensive, and the participants in those programs are really required to jump through a number of hoops to show that they are deserving of this opportunity, and for the most part, I think take advantage of those opportunities. And the statistics have shown that those treatment courts are effective, and by virtue of their recidivism rates, which are pretty outstanding.
And could you describe to us what normal recidivism is and what it is, and when it's outstanding, so we get a sense of the difference?
What do you mean by that exactly?
Well, you were saying that the special courts have a really outstanding record for recidivism, and I was wondering how much of a difference do we see from what normal rates would be and those rates?
Well,
if it's not a
okay.
tip, it's okay.
Yeah, I would say this. For instance, and I don't have statistics in front of me here, but for instance, DUI, for instance, the first-time offender, in most instances for a DUI, where it's just some slip-up, a kind of out of the ordinary. Someone had a few too drinks too many and were pulled over for swerving over the line or something to that extent. Those offenders would receive the ARD program in most instances, which is it's an acronym for Accelerated Rehabilitative Disposition. And it's essentially your one kind of free pass where you have to complete a number of obligations such as community service. You go through an alcohol safe driving program. You have to have a significant drug and alcohol evaluation and follow any recommendations that they would make. And in most cases, that individual that participates in that program will not be seen again in the Court of Common Pleas. In that regard, it will not be a recidivism factor. However, a second offense and a third offense do happen quite frequently, and that's where the treatment court programs come into play, where someone that's gotten a second offense within 10 years of their first DUI would then at that point be subject to more significant penalties as a second offender. And a third offender, you're looking at potentially 1 year in state prison. But and it's actually kind of troubling how often you see second and third offenders. And with the Berks County DUI Treatment Court, I think it's made a significant impact on how many people go on to a second or third or a fourth or even more DUIs in their lifetime. So in that regard, I think you can see the effects of treatment court in recidivism and normal recidivism.
And that was a very helpful explanation. Thank you. Do you think we should have additional special courts, more than we have now?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head that would really encompass a broad spectrum of offenders that hasn't already been addressed by, again, there's a Veterans Court, a mental health treatment court, a DUI treatment court, and there's a drug treatment court. So I think between the four of them, they pretty much have all the bases covered. I think, though, with those four treatment courts, they, if there was a certain other component involved, they would be more than happy to try and work that into the special court that they are.
Okay. Under what circumstances would you recuse yourself from a case?
Well, I think anything that would even give the appearance of being impartial on my part would warrant me recusing myself and stepping aside and allowing another very competent judge sitting on the same with the bench here without any real lapse in services to either party. So I would not be hesitant to recuse myself if there was any hint of me being fair and impartial.
Thank you. Why is the position of judge so important that people should come out and vote this spring?
Well, I think particularly in the Court of Common Pleas, that's essentially where the rubber meets the road. This is where the things, common issues come to play in the Court of Common Pleas here. There's the magisterial district courts, which deal with more along the lines of common issues, but anything that's more serious than that essentially moves up the chain to the Court of Common Pleas, where things are resolved with finality.
Mm-hmm. And I think we have about a minute for a closing statement.
Well, thank you. Again, my name's Kurt Geishauser. I'm running for the Court of Common Pleas. I bring to the table here 27 years of experience. I've practiced in every division of the Court of Common Pleas. I know it very well. I've practiced in 20 different counties. I've been before good judges and bad judges. I know the difference. I've practiced in every level of court in Pennsylvania. I've practiced in the magisterial district courts, the Court of Common Pleas, the Superior Court, the Commonwealth Court, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. I also have an extensive record in the federal system with the district courts, the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, and I've even been admitted to the United States Supreme Court, though I have never practiced before them. In any event, I believe that I bring a lot to the table here with my experience, and I believe that if I was elected, I would treat everyone in my courtroom with dignity and respect, and I believe that I would be fair and impartial, and people would find that I could do the job more than adequately.
Thank you. We thank you for sharing your views with us. And viewers, please remember there are 2 more candidates for judge on both the Democrat and Republican ballot, Justin Boder and Jill Scheidt. You will vote for 2 of the 3. And thank you for watching Candidates Up Front. You will find the Candidates Up Front interviews on BCTV and on its website and its YouTube page. And for more information on candidates, you can go to the League's online voters guide, vote411.org. Or you can contact Berks County Election Services, elections@countyofberks.com. Their phone number is 610-478-6490. And thank you for watching Candidates Up Front.